September, which is World Suicide Prevention Day. Suicide is a serious topic. Suicide is a serious global topic, global health issue. According to the latest NCRB data, India reported an average 381 deaths by suicide daily in 2019. Totally, 1,39,123 fatalities over the year. We can play an active role in determining over our own mental wellness. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. So, on the occasion of World Suicide Prevention Day, we organize this webinar on mental health and resilience. For this webinar, we got very huge overwhelming response from all over the India. So here a warm welcome to all the participants. Now I request to our Honorable Director, Dr. Satish Deshpande sir, to address our participants.
Thank you, Manisha. Yes, today we are living in the digital world. We know that COVID-19 has further insisted us to be dependent on digital platform. As a result of this, today we have the Department of Psychology, Government Institute of Forensic Science organized the webinar. It is also online on the occasion of World Suicide Prevention Day on the topic mental health and resilience. On this occasion, first of all, I welcome the speaker of the day, Dr. Vilas Padde, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Psychology, Ilfiston College, Mumbai. He is my best friend as well as he is a renowned person in the psychology. So on this occasion, again, I welcome all the participants of this webinar. In the situation of this pandemic, we know that the negativity is all around. It is always good to have some meaningful academic deliberations and discussion. I am sure that today we have a good discussion in this webinar. On this occasion, being a director of Government Institute of Forensic Science, I will brief about our institute. Government Institute of Forensic Science, Aurangabad, is one of the leading institutes of the country which imparts quality education and research in the field of forensic science. The institute was established in the year 2009 and it is funded and run by the government of Maharashtra. We have completed 11 years. In the past of 11 years, we are working hand in hand with our stakeholders to have a good education facility. So far, as concerned to the activities of this Institute of Science, till today we have trained more than 10,000 police personnel and helped them to solve so many cases, crime cases. As well as we believe in the academic excellence which should be directed for the development of society. Seeing our academic excellence and world-class curriculum, Government of Maharashtra has recommended Government Institute of Forensic Science, Aurangabad for Center of Excellence in collaboration with the CIC London under ICARI program in 2015. Finally, I am sure this deliberation will be helpful for academic communities and scholars. I welcome you once again and congratulate the psychology department, especially Manisha Gujar madam, as well as the Sumedha Jadhav madam for organizing this webinar in the COVID-19 situation. I wish this webinar a grand success. Thanks one and all.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I'm going to introduce our resource person, Dr. Vilas Padde sir. Sir has done BA and MA in psychology. He got a third rank in BA and got the first rank in psychology. Sir has the second merit in MA psychology and passed SET exam in 1995. He was a member of school and college teams of badminton and football. Sir selected by MPSC for the post of lecturer senior college in 1997 and worked in Government College of Arts and Science, Aurangabad, and later Rajaram College, Kolhapur, and joined Elphinstone College in May 2017. Sir has done his PhD in psychology. Sir achieved state award in administrative reforms at hands of the Chief Minister, Rajiv Gandhi Prashaskiya Gatimanta Puraskar 2006. first prize at the divisional level, Aurangabad division, and got third prize at the state level, Maharashtra. Sir is the author of Sir is the author of a book, Manashastra Ek Parichay, which is psychology and introduction and even advanced general psychology. Sir developed research, test teacher assessment scale, and the director of higher education Maharashtra state implemented it in 10 colleges in the state in 2009 and 2010 as a pilot project. Many colleges in the state are presently using this test. Sir published 12 research papers in international journals and presented 4 research papers in international conferences. Sir is not only working actively in academics, but also active in other activities. He is working on tiger conservation initiatives, including volunteering for annual tiger census in national park, conducting awareness programs in schools and colleges, writing articles on wildlife related terms, related themes and experiences. Sir is also a writer, director of an award-winning animated film, Let's Save Bobby, which is made in association with Blender Foundation, the Netherlands. The film is based on the theme of tiger conservation and has won many awards and accolades in international film festivals, and was invited to China November 2018 for the screening of this film and to deliver lecture on tiger conservation. In short, Sir has the all-rounder personality. And being his student, I would like to tell you, Sir is the best teacher which I have ever seen. So we are very fortunate to have such an immense personality as a resource person. So uh, I request you, sir, please start the session. Before that, one note for the participants: you can write your question on the chat box. Sir, please start the
Yes,
session.
thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you so much, Manisha madam, for this wonderful introduction. And as it is with technology, let us go step by step. You can hear me now. Can you also see me? I have, I think, turned on the video.
You're not video.
Visible, I'm not. Okay. Am I visible now?
Not yet, so.
I can see myself on the screen, but that is the problem with technology, I guess. We did a check right now, didn't we? I am canceling it and I'm starting it all over again. Anyway, I think if I'm audible and if I can share the slides, even that would be fine.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so let us not waste time over that.
Yes,
Maybe
sir.
am I visible
Yes,
now?
sir,
I
you're
can see
visible
the
now.
video moving now.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you so much. Some teething troubles. So Manisha madam, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And it's indeed a pleasure and an honor to be here with all of you, my learned friend, colleague, and a wonderful human being in himself, Dr. Satish Deshpande sir. A very good morning to you. Sumedha Zadhav madam, head of department psychology, Manisha madam, all the faculty members, colleagues, students, participants, guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to all of you. So without wasting much time, if you allow me to move on to my presentation, we have a very serious discussion ahead of us. Manisha madam just told you about what was that 391 deaths per day occurring in India, which is a staggering statistic. That itself tells you how serious the problem is. And as we observe the World Suicide Prevention Day today, let us try and understand issues surrounding why people are forced to commit suicide. What are the causes behind that? What is the role of society? What is the role of we individuals in the society? And some of the ways through which we would be able to control this. So Aurangabad is second home to me, and Government Institute of Forensic Science is, again a home within a home, because I was associated with this institute for many years, and the people, of course, like Manisha just told me, Manisha and Sumedha, both of my wonderful students. I'm very happy to see them work hard, and Satish sir, of course, a very good friend. So with this, I really feel very homely whenever I get an opportunity to meet Aurangabadkars. It is always, a pleasure. It's like a welcome back to home. So with your permission, now I'll share the screen, and I have some, PowerPoints over here. Can you see this? Manisha madam, is
Yes,
this
sir. Yes,
visible?
sir. Yes, yes.
Okay, so see, this is a bit of a thing that we have to keep on doing. Might sound a bit irritating, but given technology and all, we have to keep on checking whether things are there in place. So the topic that we have for deliberations today is mental health and resilience.
After mental health during this.
Okay,
Learning.
Manisha,
Yes, sir.
yes, please mute your mic. This also happens once in a while. Okay. So anyway, talking of mental health and resilience, and as we are celebrating World Suicide Prevention Day, first let us move to a more grim topic, that is suicide. I think there is hardly anyone who has not heard of this term, although when you go into the genesis, it came to be used somewhere in 1642, where Sir Thomas Browne is known to have used the term in his treatise Religio Medici of oneself, and serious is actually chopping off, which is here implied as murder. So, although the term as we know it today might have been, brought into use in relative recent past, we have been aware of this concept. Probably it would be safe to assume suicide is as old as civilization itself. The Greek, heroes, tragic heroes, many times referred to as the philosopher Socrates or Demosthenes. Socrates famously drank hemlock rather than, preferring to run away. The Roman heroes, Brutus, and Mark Antony, and the famous Egyptian queen Cleopatra. So these are some incidents from, or people, I would say, from history, from literature, that we have come across, we have heard, we have read, that these people, unfortunately ended their lives. Looking back into recent history, the person who laid the foundations of British rule in India, Robert Clive, infamously, committed suicide. The great Alan Turing, who laid the foundations of, or I would say, prophesized um, artificial intelligence, which is a big area of research nowadays. A scientist of his stature also unfortunately went on to commit suicide, or a Nobel Award winning writer Ernest Hemingway. So even with or without these examples, we know that suicide is a real problem. It exists there in society, some known faces, some unknown faces. But this is a tragedy that has been happening since, as I said, the beginning of civilization. And unfortunately, we have not yet been able to control it. Rather, probably it is on the rise. As society progresses, as education levels go higher, it is rather expected that social ills, lacunae, shortcomings, these should be taken care of. We should be able to control them. But on the other hand, what's happening is, quite ironically, suicides are on the rise. Now, some of the grim, statistics, like Manisha just mentioned, we unfortunately see 8 lakh deaths every year the world over. Now, 8 lakh is a big figure, 800,000. That is almost the population of, small towns in our country. So imagine one town, a municipality being wiped off every year, people committing suicides. Look at the COVID deaths that are happening, and the hype, should I say hype, or the concern, even to better put it, that is being raised over that. And look at the number of deaths that are happening by way of suicide, people ending their own lives, which is, a very bad thing to happen. One person every 40 seconds. So by the time we have started this session and we have reached, hardly a couple of slides, somewhere in some corner of the world, you could have had probably five people who might have ended their lives. And by the time we end this session, an hour or so, an hour and a half, 90 to 100 people might have ended their lives, statistically speaking, the world over. So the situation really is that bad. Worse is, for every death that is recorded, more than 20 others are attempting suicide. So just imagine, out of 8 lakh deaths that are recorded, multiply that by 20, that would be, I guess, more than 1.5 crore, 1 crore 60 lakh. Imagine these many number of people attempting suicide in this world every year. And this is 2016 data that who has published. I'm afraid things might have only moved from bad to worse. So imagine something like, more than 1.5 crore is like the population of entire countries in some places. So entire countries attempting suicide, something of that nature, that will tell you of the magnanimity of the problem. This is the third, leading cause of death among teenagers, 15 to 19-year olds. Imagine, third leading cause of death among teenagers. And it is the eighth leading cause among the more mature adult population, 15 to 44-year olds. So that tells you about how grim the situation is. And here is, if I might unfortunately call this the suicide map of the world. So the darker the shade, grimmer the picture. And as you can see, the entire picture is colored, is almost red, although red not a very rosy picture, but that shows, how bad things are. If I can turn on my pointer over here, you have, maybe this is Greenland over here, and this could be Venezuela and a few other countries in North Africa. So, some of the Middle East over here, and maybe it's Pakistan, which is quite surprising. Here, either it is no data available or they are not counting suicide bombers, I guess. But if you look at India, then you would definitely see the picture here is quite grim. We are here, one of the most colorful of the lot, which is really a very avoidable situation. Now, talking about more numbers, if you look at the global average, that is 2016 data, for both sexes, 10.6 individuals per 1 lakh of population. In females, it is 7.7, and for males, it is 13.5 males per lakh of the population are committing suicide. If you compare this with India, unfortunately, we are above the global average. This is one area where we could do better, by being below global averages. So for both sexes, it is 16.3 deaths per 1 lakh of the population. And for females, it is twice the global average, which is really a bad situation. 14.7 females are committing suicide per lakh of the population in our country. And for males also, it is extremely high, 17.8, or you could say, around figure of 18 males per 1 lakh of the population. So these are some really bad figures, something, that would once again make us confront, show us a mirror that, things are really bad. We need to look at these. Another thing, again, statistically speaking, India is the greatest contributor to the absolute number of deaths. You could say this is a bit obvious given that we are such a large population. Naturally, in percentage terms, the figure also that stands out is going to be very high. But then, China is more populous than we are. And of course, we don't know Chinese figures or Chinese products. What comes out of China is doubtable. But then mocking at our neighbors is not going to help us. The fact of the matter is we are staring at this elephant in the room. There is this huge problem that we have to acknowledge and we have to confront together. If we have to be number one, there are so many better things in which we could be number one in the world. Let's be better, in human values. Let us, share the best of human values to the world. We are the world, the country of Buddha and Gandhi. Let us spread good human values. Let's be number one in that. Let us have the greenest country, in this world. Let us be the happiest nation. Let us make, India number one in terms of women's safety or child safety. But I think being number one in absolute, terms when it comes to suicide deaths is something that is definitely avoidable. Now, I came across a very good research paper in the Indian Journal of Psychiatry. I have in this corner, if you could see, I have mentioned the details. You could, check that online. It's freely available. The top 10 causes, of suicide correlates. Now we are all aware that causation and correlation are two different things. So I would again correct myself and use the term correlates of suicide. Family problems, 23.7% of the cases, it has been observed that these people had family problems. Now, look at the irony of the situation. Don't you find this to be quite paradoxical in nature that we are a country that boasts of, that prides in our family values, ghar, and we talk about Vasudeva Kutumbakam, why just one family? The entire world is one family. And look at the family problems here. Correlating to about 23% with suicide deaths. Look at any Bollywood film and माँ and बाबूजी और बेटी के दामन में खुशियां भरना चाहता हूँ और बाबूजी की आंखों में आंसू नहीं देख सकती and stuff like that, all emotional drama. But the reality is, and I think as academicians we need to face this reality, that family problems is something that is correlating to a staggering 23.7% of suicide deaths. Illnesses amount to 21%, including mental illnesses, which is about 7%, 6.7%. Now, that also speaks in volumes about the crumbling health infrastructure in our country. Uh, Unfortunately, because of this COVID situation, this has again been brought to the fore. But then we need to really relook at, the health infrastructure in our country. There was this beautiful movie, I'm sure most of you kids must have seen that, Three Idiots, in which there is this dialogue, पिज्जा आधे घंटे में पहुंच जाता है लेकिन एम्बुलेंस नहीं पहुंच पाती. So this is one of the grim realities that again comes to the fore. And mental illnesses, now it's very safe to imagine or assume that depression, as you could see, is one of the leading causes of suicides among mental illnesses. So somewhere we are not able to address these problems as a society. And then you have some other factors like unemployment, love affairs, breakups, and stuff like that, drug abuse and addiction, failures, in examinations, bankruptcy, economic problems, poverty, dowry disputes, which unfortunately used to be very high until a couple of decades back. I believe, fortunately, that number is coming down. But these are some of the leading causes that we really need to pay attention to. Among teenage suicides, because I think an overwhelming population of the attendees today are teenagers, students, you would find that, and I purposefully put this graph over here, these are American statistics. And why I put this is we like to, ape or mimic the American lifestyle. Whatever is happening in America or whatever was happening in America 30, 40 years back, we are finding ourselves probably in the same situation today. Everything that happens there, we are trying to aid that. But then look at the spurt in the number of suicide deaths. I think this is one American model that our youngsters or teenagers can best avoid. And then some of the precipitating factors among teenagers: mental illnesses, intimate partners, some recent crisis in life, and so on and so forth. Now, this brings us to a question as to what is the real cause behind suicides, what causes suicide. It's a big problem, we all know. And that reminds me of a beautiful statement that I read in a book by Henry Clay Lindgren many years ago. In fact, to be very honest with you, when I was in second year, I had this paper of social psychology, and what a fantastic statement that was. Every problem is a social problem. Lindgren happens to just mention it in the flow of his writing on one of the, let's say, in a paragraph, and he moves ahead. But somewhere this problem, caught my attention, and it has not left my psyche for decades altogether. I would share another statement with you, and why I'm sharing this, because we have a lot of students here. Don't read books to simply pass in examinations. All right, that's a very narrow perspective. Try to understand what the author is trying to say, and you might actually find a treasure trove in literally every statement, every paragraph. Blum and Naylor, in their book on industrial psychology, have said, "A man lives as he drives." These people just mention it and they move ahead. But it is that one statement that catches your attention. A man lives as he drives, and then you look at the way people drive. Those people, who will drive wrong side, you'll always find them doing all the wrong things in life. Those people who cannot, what you say, bear being overtaken by someone else. You find these things, the biggest insult that is heaped upon them, कि मेरे को overtake किया, that sort of a thing. You'll find these people acting and behaving the same way in life. So coming back to the social problem that we have had, every problem is a social problem. If you look at almost every major problem in this world, you might find this to be a gospel truth. Let us take a look at some of the major problems that we have, in this world that we are facing. So, from this, a bit of a narrow bunch of statistics on suicides, allow me to take you to a very broader level as to the way the world is, looking, perceiving, things are happening all around the world, and the way all these things could be social problems. Poverty. Is poverty an individual problem? Are a group of people poor? Or is it a social problem? On the one hand, in society, there are people who are splurging, who are wasting literally food. Go to marriages, go to hotels, people are leaving food on their plates. And on the other hand, there are people who are in poverty, destitute, I would say. Look at the problem like terrorism that the world is facing. Is that an individual problem, a group problem? That is essentially a social problem. You could call it socio-political, socio-religious. It could be over a piece of land. It could be over some stupid ideology. It could be over anything. But the fact of the matter is, these are essentially social issues, and people are killing each other in the name of these so-called ideologies. Pollution. Who is manufacturing, buying, and littering all the plastic or all over the place? We have literally reduced our beautiful planet to a dustbin. Is that not a social problem? Is it not we, the people, who are creating all this dirt around us? Climate change. Yes, there are natural causes. There's no doubt about that. We are in the middle of, it is said, the sixth mass extinction, and this is entirely human caused extinction. So everything from the exhaust from chimneys to cars, industrial outputs, to the pollution of rivers, to global warming, to whatnot, you will find that you have a human activity behind that, because we as a society, we want to consume. All right, we want to consume and you want to chop down a forest for that. From where is this consumptionism coming? It is a part and parcel of this very society. And then to the present, COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, there is one person who gets infected, but is this not a social problem? What is the mantra for survival? Wash your hands regularly and social distancing. See, self explanatory. Social distancing, that itself tells us that this is essentially a social problem. You cannot rule that out. Had people who got infected first, had they been, or even people today, been a bit more serious and careful about their behavior, I think we would not have probably reached the levels of pandemic. But it's a social, attitude of sorts that we अरे कुछ नहीं होता, अरे क्या छोड़ना यार, क्या डरता तू, and what happens? चलता है, कुछ नहीं होता. Here we are all sitting, all behind locked doors, and we are in the middle of the pandemic. So these are all essentially in a way social problems, or I would say they have a huge heavy social content included. So if all these problems are essentially social problems, how come suicide is not a social problem? So yes, there is definitely bound to be a huge social angle to that. Considering it individually, it is an extreme end of a deteriorating mental health. See, suicide is not something that people just wake up in the morning and contemplate, that you think, okay, let's go shopping now. Okay, let's call a friend. Okay, let's go to a movie. So people don't just get up and say, okay, now I want to end my life. No, this is a very slow and sure and sinking sort of situation that the person is in. And this deteriorating mental health is something that is causing suicides. Manisha, if you allow me to ask you to turn on your mic, I can hear some sounds here. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, because there are some sounds happening in the background. So I just thought it's better to check once in a while. Sorry for that. So this is not a problem that is restricted to the poor and destitute. Far many suicides in famously in Maharashtra, Telangana, and the central Indian belt, as we see. We have some very rich and famous people, who have committed suicide, and that probably brings this topic back onto the burner. So you have a Sushant Singh Rajput or a Guru Dutt or a Robin Williams or a heartthrob like Marilyn Monroe. I mean, can you imagine people have all the wealth and all the fame? Even these people end up committing suicide. So there is something about this, this very concept, this very ideation, that it is not restricted to one individual. Had it been, these rich and famous people would have never possibly done that. So there is a social aspect, no doubt, and then there is also a personal aspect. We shall take a look at them. When you talk about society and this being a larger social problem, what is society? Society is something, we always talk about, but what exactly is this society that we are talking about? Is society about people? Well, yes, it is. But is it only about people? There are people all around you. There is a family, and there are colleagues, and there are classmates, and there are people on the train, in the buses, in the marketplace. So, is society only about people? Or is society only about relationships among all those people? You could say, sir, the people in the market, I don't know them. But yes, with my family and friends, I have intimate relationships. Is that what forms society? Or is it about a broader culture, the culture that we live in? The culture, as you could say, includes the language that you speak, the food that you eat. It includes, the various lifestyles, as we call it, that we have started to adopt. That is, a part of society, and the value system in a society that keeps on changing, keeps on evolving. Is the value system, the goods and bads, that we talk about, is that a part of society, or is society about norms, the most common things that people do? All right, are these common bunch of things that define society, or imagine, is it about imaginations? Is society an imagined thing? Does society exist in our imagination? All right, I would ask you to, think about it. It's a very compelling question. No, society is real, you would say. Yes, the people, the relationship, these values, culture. All right, this is the physical world that you live in. That is society. But can society be there in your imaginations? Had it not been so, probably people would not have committed suicide, because at times it is these value judgments. People will laugh at me. It is this imagination, and then people go and commit suicide. I failed in an examination. I failed my parents. My parents will be very upset. My teachers, my friends will laugh at me, and I have, not lived up to their expectations. Students go and end their lives. This is imaginary. You don't know what has actually happened, whether your parents would be considerate. They'll say, all right, let's have another chance, all right, let's try and do something better. But these are many a times imagined scenarios that actually people, they conjure these images in their minds, and they take action upon that. I was giving an example to my SY students, if some of them have logged in, in social psychology. When you stand in front of the mirror, when you buy a new dress, you think, will my friends appreciate this new dress, this new hairstyle, or something like that? Or will they laugh at me? What is this? You haven't yet, stepped into the college. Your friends haven't yet seen you, but you start thinking about what your friends might think and, react to your dress and your hairstyle and a number of things that you do. So always remember, society is not just a physical entity, it is also a part of a larger construct in your imagination. It is important to understand this as we move ahead. Now, given that society has such a huge impact on us in what we think, what we do, how we act, how we react, the fact of the matter is society creates a Ravan. So, society that creates a Ravan. So, what you absorb from society, what values, what experiences that you gather, that is something that actually shapes up your personality. It either makes you weak, it makes you wicked, or it makes you honest, it makes you resilient. These are things that are heavily, influenced by the society that we live in. Society starts defining, some of our core values and beliefs in life, emotions in life, happiness and sorrow. What is it that makes you happy and what is it that makes you sorrow? You'll say, sir, these are extremely completely personal things. How do you say society defines that? Well, then look around you. So many things that you do in your life are simply because you think, they make you happy. Why? Because society is telling you that. So, what is the happiest moment in your life? Post a photo on Instagram where you are sitting on a beach with, some I don't know, mocktail cocktail in your hand, possibly an exotic location somewhere in Australia or I don't know where, and then you post that photo on Instagram and try to tell the world, wow, what a vacation I'm having. See, I'm so happy. And when you do that, you bring sorrow to the rest of the people. And, they're saying, oh, where am I spending my holidays? And look at this person, enjoying so much of life somewhere out there. But is that real happiness and sorrow? Are we not unduly influenced by what society is trying to tell us? See, social media, it's a part of society. Advertisements, all a part of society. These news channels and media, the way it comes to you, all that is a part of society. And now they are the ones who define to you what happiness and sorrow is. It is society that starts defining what success and failure is. What is your salary? How much do you earn? Do you have a big bungalow? Maybe, a 4 2 BHK flat, a big car. If you have that, that is what makes you successful. If not, then you are a failure in life. All right, 20 years and you don't buy a car. What a failure. You don't own a house. What a failure. This, success, or these definitions, parameters, you could say, of success and failure are somewhere defined by society, and we have started imbibing, accepting that. Not only that, some very, very core emotional issues like love and relationships. You might not have thought so deeply about it, but then think about it again. Is love and relationship not defined by society? Think about it. What is love and what is relationship? You have this Valentine's Day. All right, you remember that. Well, I'm not making value judgments over here. I'm not against anything. All right, but I'm just trying to tell you, try and understand the way we think and the way we, look at the society and ourselves within that society. So if you don't buy a diamond what necklace or ring to your wife, then you don't love her. And then you have advertisements all over. There are these radio channels, Nimbu Mirchi, whatnot, and then they are telling you, oh, if you are single, oh, that you are living such a sad life, you still don't have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Wait. By next year, we wish you the best of luck. Why don't you let people live their life? Leave them alone. I mean, there are so many better things to do in life. Let them study their books, let them enjoy their hobbies. Why do you have to keep on telling people that if you are not in love and in relationships, your life is worthless, which is entirely untrue, which is completely false. I'm not against love, I'm not against relationships. So I'm repeating again, these are not value judgments, but just take a look around and you would find that society, through its agents, you could call them media, social or traditional or electronic or whatnot, and the norms and value systems around us, it has started defining happiness, success, love, relationships for you. When that happens, very naturally, your own core personality, your thoughts and beliefs, and what's happening around you in society, there is a huge conflict. Okay. The other problem is society is entirely dynamic in nature. It is never stable. All right, it is constantly changing, evolving. So the only thing that is constant, they say, is change. All right, and in this constantly changing world where everything from fashion to relationships to values, things are changing day in and day out, adaptation becomes a huge problem. How to adapt to this hugely changing world, a constantly changing world around us? So everything from technology to family, it's changing by the day. I mean, look at these cell phones and stuff that you people are carrying in your hands. Look at the changes, rapid changes in technology that are happening. Look at the family. It used to be joint families, a family of 15, 20 people came down to nuclear families, hum do hamare do, and now it's a one child family. When these changes happen, so do norms and values within the family also happen to change along with that. So it's within the family, it's outside of the family. Everywhere, you find change that is happening. And in these rapidly changing times, many times people find adaptation to be very difficult. That comes in front of you as a challenge. One other thing that is happening with society is we are turning individualistic. All right, from the larger society to individuals in society, as we might move, when we start turning individualistic as a society, it has its own advantages as also disadvantages. So once again, no value judgments. All right, always there is a flip side to everything. The only thing is, as we move ahead, we have to understand, we have to keep an eye on, are things going the wrong way? So only from that perspective, what are the advantages of this individualism, as you might call it? It gives you freedom. It gives you entire freedom to decide on what you have to do, what you want to do, what you do not want to do. The smallest of things like dress. Okay, so what you want to wear, to a large extent, it was earlier entirely dictated by society. Girls, especially, you should wear or should not wear jeans, a pair of jeans, entirely dictated by society. Khap panchayat and all, if you are aware, you might have read, I don't know, but they used to pass dictats, that girls will not wear jeans in this village, for example. So there is a loss of individual freedom. Okay, there was this famous, what quote you might call it, or just something that has come out conventionally, कि लड़की की नजर जितनी झुकी होगी बाप का सर उतना फकर से ऊंचा होगा. I mean, what nonsense, why should girls live their life bloody looking down, why can't they look up and look at you in the face? So that individual freedom at times is robbed by society. So yes, we, by way of individualism, to muster up the courage to grab individual freedom. It's my life and I want to do the things my way. There is a personal choice. There's a personal choice for dress, as I said. It could be for food, it could be for a vocation that you choose. The person can stand up and say that, no, I want to go in for this particular course. There was a time when parents would decide, to a large extent, they still do, unfortunately, but then they decide what course the child should pick up. They'll pick you up and put you into these coaching classes and whatnot and paying money for that. But then that personal choice, still now somehow I would see this shift happening is retained by the individual. So being in the field of psychology, I many times get calls or references from friends that we both husband wife are doctors and my child wants to pursue liberal arts and we have no idea as to what it is. Could you just help us explain? But they never tell me, this is one change I've seen, that please persuade my child, or dissuade him or her from taking up something. We have a hospital and we want our child to become a doctor. Trust me, I have faced the situations, and one couple is from Aurangabad itself. There are people who say we are both engineers, we have no idea about what arts is, and my child wants to do something in economics or psychology. So could you, sir, please help us in that? So people have started respecting that personal choice, which is a good thing. That allows personal growth. When you make your choices, you like the things that you do, and you do the things that you like. So very naturally there is growth and most importantly you learn to say no, because you are there as an individual with your own human individual values. What is no. You learn to say no, which was a distant dream for generations earlier. So whatever the family said, they simply had to follow that. Now, like I said, there is a flip side to it. All right. And you should only be aware of that. I'm not saying you give up your personal choices or your freedom, but always be aware of the disadvantages so that you can work with them. Less social support. Naturally, when you start becoming individualistic, me and myself and my thoughts and values, you have a less strong social network and a less social support available to you, because everything you want to do your way. I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say you are a group of 8 to 10 students in college and you want to go to a movie. Now social norms and group behavior dictates that even if you don't like a movie, mostly people will say, all right, everyone wants to see it, chalo theek hai, I don't like it, but for you I'll come and sit there. All right, the food that you eat, no, I don't like this, I want this. But many a times, just because everybody is ordering that, so you also say, all right, not kachori, samosa, fine, I'll have a samosa for you all. But as you turn more and more individualistic, you put your foot down. I don't want to go to this movie. Okay, you go, I will not come with you. And people have said, no, we want your company. And you say, no, it's my choice, I don't like this movie, I don't want to come. What happens is these smallest of things, from a movie to a something like a dish of some food that you're ordering, the more you say no, no, no to people, naturally you start moving away from people, so you have less social support in times of need. Second thing is, you have to owe responsibility for the decision. The onus is entirely upon you. The the, the parents would say, all right, we have allowed you to take a course of your choice. Now whether you get a job or not, how you do in your field, that is entirely up to you. We don't know anything about that. They might in fact also give you, this is 1 lakh rupees for your what 11 12, some course in what NET and CET exams and whatnot, tuitions, classes, whatever you call it. And this is some money for your new cell phone, this is money for a new vehicle, scooty wooty, to go to classes. So we are giving you all the money, but now you have to perform. See, so that responsibility now comes on my mind. Yes, parents have given me the class of my choice. They have given me a mobile of my choice. They have given me a vehicle of my choice. Now I have to perform. Now parents, in a way, are looking the other way. They say, we don't know anything else. Now sit down, study, work hard, and get the marks in the examination. Now the pressure, the onus suddenly falls entirely upon the student, and that in many of ways, by being too individualistic, it lowers your emotional competence to deal with emotional situations, whether your own emotions or the emotions of other people. So whenever you are a proponent of, and I'm honestly, I too am, I would always favor individual freedom and personal choice over a ghetto or a group mentality. Yes, trust me on that. But when you do that, always take care that you are taking into account the flip sides, जिसको हम बोलते हैं बह जाना. Don't move to the other extreme of individualism, where you suddenly find yourself to be extremely lonely and vulnerable. All right. And that is what you call to be lost in freedom. What is lost in freedom? You have the freedom of choice to do what you want to do, but many a times psychologists are writing this in their academic papers, that youngsters are reporting a meaninglessness in life. They say we can do what we want to do, but we just don't know what we are doing and why we are doing that. I like it and I'm doing it. And at the end of the day, youngsters think that, but why did I do it? I think it's like I almost wasted my entire day away. I wasted months away. I wasted years away. So I've been doing everything that I want, but there is less meaning in what I'm doing, is something of a thought or a feeling that is being reported by psychiatrists and counselors nowadays. So now that brings us to resilience. When you have these situations, how do you make yourself more and more resilient? So support groups are very important. Your family, your friends, your neighbors, colleagues, relatives, all the people around you, these are actually your support groups. Now just pause for a moment and think, are these very peoples with whom we are competing? Are these the very people with whom we are fighting all the time? All right. And that very thing that was supposed to be a support group, it's like a double-edged sword. Now, rather than being, a shield for me, a weapon for me, a sword for me, it's actually hurting me. So you find that actually, like in the earlier slide, we showed that we have about what 23% of the correlation with suicide was with family related issues and family problems. So what should actually be a support group is actually turning into a problem. Your friends and neighbors, something that you're supposed to just enjoy your life with, are you comparing yourselves with them? What mobile does my friend have? Oh, what is that? 20 megapixel camera, dual camera. Oh, mine is only 15 megapixel. No, I need something better than this. Oh, this feature, that feature. So is this something that we are continuously, like comparing with our friends? So in place of happiness, is jealousy something that is coming out of friendships, out of your interaction with your relatives and neighbors and colleagues? What car did your neighbor buy? Oh, 10 lakh rupee car, and now I have to buy a 20, 15 lakh rupee car. Is that what you're comparing with your colleagues all the time, among your relatives? Maybe ornaments and all material things that you have, what inches LCD and TVs and all, what I don't know this stuff. But essentially, those very people who are supposed to be your support groups, in fact, end up, you yourself probably end up making them, problem groups for you. So make sure that you maintain your support groups and you have very healthy relations with these people. These are the who can actually be there for help in times of crisis, and avoid some of the social impacts as far as possible. Advertisements, one of the worst things that is happening in our society today. Advertisements, I mean, we fall prey to these advertisements. Can you imagine in a society like India, where Mahatma Gandhi fought his entire life against apartheid? We have actually advertisements of fairness creams that are being beamed into our homes. We are sitting there with our children watching television, and then something pops up, and a girl is telling you, oh, you have a darker skin, you have no chance of getting selected in an interview, your life is so worthless, you are so useless, apply this bloody cream, and then look at the change in your the skin color. And they actually show those shade cards, like you go to buy a paint in a shop, they would show you a shade card. Here these guys actually show that. And you have youngsters buying these host of creams and shampoos and whatnot. See, hygiene is one thing that I always support. Hygiene is good, stay hygienic, there's no doubt about that. And in times of COVID, this is being one reality that we are learning the hard way, is keep on washing your hands and be hygienic. But what about these advertisements that keep on telling you how inferior you are because you don't own a certain car, because you don't own your own house, and because you don't own certain material goods or the color of your skin? This is something that lowers your resilience, your ability to fight back. This is something that is essentially detrimental to your overall mental health. All right, avoid peer pressure. Avoid peer pressure. Like I said, friends are good, absolutely wonderful. One of the most beautiful relationships that you could find in this world is that of friendship. But let that not be converted into undue peer pressure. I mean, one typical example is, what we typically call as bad habits, buri aadatein lag jana, and what I mean by that is, let's say smoking or drinking, consuming alcohol. That's mostly out of peer pressure. अरे कुछ नहीं होता यार, दो घूंट लगा दे, अरे क्या शर्माता लड़की की तरह, stuff like that, and then people are into it. Don't let these things happen. And apart from just consumption of a few things, your thoughts and attitudes, simply because people are doing that, that's not the reason you should do that. Don't get swayed by opinions. Hold on to your ground. All right, being individualistic is fine. All right, but that is not only in terms of fashion and other things, that is also in terms of the values that you hold. Okay, what is a no is a no. If you are there on the signal, a red light there in front of you, even if it's an empty road and the guy behind you is honking, don't get swayed by that. Let him call you an idiot, rasta khali hai, dikta nahi kya. But it's entirely your choice that because it's a red signal, I will not move. Okay, so that's just an example, but there are so many things that happen in life all around you, and many a times we change our opinions only because of this social pressure around us. And the more we fall prey to these things, the more we are compounding our own problems quite unnecessarily. Talking about the individual now. All right, society, as I said, is one part of it, and then comes the individual. The more rooted you are, deeper your roots, as you could see in this vector over here, the more deeper your roots, more stable a personality you would have. I think that's quite commonsensical. Any tree that has deeper roots, more spread out roots, stronger roots, always stands firm, even in times of adversity. So that same applies to an individual. And when we say these deeper roots, what are we talking about? We are talking about the physical health of the individual. Yes, physical health is extremely important. You should exercise daily. Your emotions, try to, sort of get an idea, try to get a feedback, try to understand yourself. Are you extremely emotionally volatile? Do you lose your temper, or do you lose hope very easily? Do you get frustrated very easily? So it is always a good idea that you keep a tab of your emotions, and if at all, go visit a counselor, seek help. All right, वो बोलते हैं ना, बीमारी आंख पे मत निकालो, that sort of a thing. No, it's not going to go away. You cannot wish it away unless and until you actually work upon it. And then the cognitive part, the thinking part. All right, the way you think and the way you perceive society. All right, accommodation, for instance, are you able to expand the paradigms of thinking, and are you able to expand your thinking, or assimilation? Are you sort of stuck up with your own vision, and then you say, all right, this is my vision, whatever fits into this is good, whatever does not fit into it is bad. All right, so you have to expand your cognitive paradigms and try to understand this world in a more intellectual way, in a more cognitive way, rather than your own narrow perspectives. And then it's very important to have these outlets, these hobbies, as you call it. It's art, many times it's music. There are people who like to write. These are outlets, like a pressure cooker situation that you are in. Or jab city baj jati hai, what happens is the steam gushes out. So your art and the music and the hobbies are a part of these outlets. They allow you to unwind. Just go and cook in the kitchen if you want to. Pursue some of your hobbies. Like Manisha was telling, I just go into the forest, and I try to sort of pass on this message of conservation to students. That's, you could say, a part of hobby, but that is also a social awareness that you are talking about. You could mix that together also. All right, At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what is your utility value to society? Is there something that I've contributed to society? And by society, I don't necessarily mean, every one of us can become a Mahatma Gandhi or something. Your society could simply be those 5, 10 people around you. My students could be my society. All right, do students, gain something from me, or they end up being more confused and frustrated? So it is that small thing that you have to ask yourself, what is my utility value to society? And you'll realize, as you indulge in things that bring more and more meaningfulness to the acts and actions that you do, you will find you are more relieved and you are more stable. So giving, actually, giving maybe your time, if you can afford some of your money, and whatever acts that you are doing of charity, maybe of help, maybe, or as I said, for a social cause, maybe, you'll find that this gives you a sense of a sense of happiness, a sense of contentment in life, that all right, I'm in some way connected to the society. So these aspects, if you take care of, you'll find yourself to be having a very sound mental health, because these are the factors that contribute to a good mental health. There is one more thing, that I would honestly suggest, that stop romanticizing suicide. All right, this is one thing that is, avoidable. Yes, that might bring you in conflict with maybe some of the social norms and theories. Freud hypothesized of thanatos, the death wish that each and every one of carries inside. There are socio-religious, things like a sati. I mean, can you imagine how bad a thing is? A widow is burned on the funeral pyre of her husband, and then you call her a sati mata and sati devi. Look at the pathetic social, norms that we had a few hundred years back, that we were not able to take care of our own widows, I mean, of our own daughters. And these poor women were literally burned alive, and they were glorified as sati. So stop romanticizing that. A concept like a samadhi, jal samadhi lena and stuff like that, a salekhana or santhara. I know, I might be here in contravention with some of your religious values, but trust me, I am an academician, and what is good and bad is bad for me. So if I'm talking about suicide, I will very honestly, and you could pardon me for that, put it on record that you have to stop romanticizing suicide. Take the suicide bombers, for example. I mean, what nonsense is this? All right, you get a jannat, and you are idealizing, romanticizing some cause, some ideology, and people are blowing themselves up and killing others along with that. You have to stop this stupid romanticizing. And the films and the media, this Sushant Singh Rajput case, I mean, there are hundreds of suicides that are happening every day. Look at the way the media goes all over about it. There are norms, that are suggested how to cover these cases. WHO, I didn't include that in my slide, but in my presentation, that is. But there are norms clearly laid down, that don't, romanticize that, don't overdo that, don't show the ways the way it was, and don't go into minute details. And that is exactly what we end up doing. Okay, so one thing that we all have to remember is, stop romanticizing suicide. It's a bad thing. And as you could see in this poster, I'm just an angel that wants to go home. This is a very famous quote. So I have put that over here. That's not at all a good thing to happen. And then, as I conclude, allow me to talk about a concept that I would say, emotional vaccination. Well, we all are aware of what a vaccine is. Thanks to this pandemic, once again, a COVID vaccine that the world is in search of. Like, you have vaccines for many diseases. Can you have an emotional vaccine? All right. Can you, like, vaccinate people for, being emotionally stable? What a vaccine essentially does is, a very weakened virus, if you allow me, because I'm in the company of, the Forensic Science Institute here. I'm the guest there, So my host would probably, I request you to allow me or pardon me of my ignorance, but it is a weakened virus that is let into your body, and then the body develops antibodies for that. That to me is a very commonsensical and simplest, sort of definition of a vaccine. Can we do that? Emotionally speaking, can we create situations where we allow our youngsters or children to be more emotionally strong and stable? How come? By giving them creating situations where they are facing adverse situations and they are able to come out of that. All right. Now I'll tell you something very, very frankly. We are into this one child norm family, and there is never a question of saying no. Everything that a child demands is given away. So children, unfortunately, are not evolving, developing, growing up with a set of you could call it an emotional infrastructure that allows them to be resilient, because we have not allowed them to become resilient the way you would become to a vaccine, a virus that is by way of a vaccine physically resilient. You can make your children emotionally resilient. Unfortunately, what happens is people don't understand what core psychological principles are all about. Talk about the concept of punishment. Now punishment is banned in schools. Okay, I mean, do people really understand what punishment is? What is punishment? Guys, abuse is different and punishment is different. Now unfortunately, like I said, we are accepting everything that happens in America, everything that is happening in the West, right from their education systems to whatnot. We just pick it up and try to implement it here. Look, abuse is definitely to be banned. You hear of those unfortunate cases where children are beaten, black and blue. Some people, some students, unfortunately, die out of it, which is very bad. But punishment is a psychological principle defined as a stimulus that follows a response, thereby reducing the probability of the response occurring again. That is what a punishment is. So a smallest of punishment, if you allow me to use that term, a mild punishment, that is something that helps in molding behavior. Now the thing is, मानसिक आघात मत करो बच्चों पे. अरे what nonsense मानसिक आघात. At least my students, those who have ever had the misfortune of attending my psychology lectures would know कि मैं जितना बच्चे मुझे गुड मॉर्निंग गुड इवनिंग नहीं बोलते, उससे ज्यादा मेरे मुंह से तो बेवकूफ और इडियट निकल जाता है. I mean, don't raise your children like what you call that, teddy bears or those stuffed toys. I mean, make them resilient. When you walk outside into this real world, there are going to be people, you're going to face a boss. When I look at your assignment, I say, what nonsense have you written there, idiot? ये लिखने का है, उठा के फेंको इसको. But the boss is going to say the same thing tomorrow. What is this you have written, idiot? Throw this away. And then what are you going to do? You're going to come and cry. Probably then you'll remember me, as most of my students. I hope they're not in that situation. They don't get as bad bosses as they've got a psychology teacher. But then these are real situations. So being good, being caring, being loving, being affectionate is one thing. But that does not mean that you remove punishment. That does not mean that you don't tell children this is wrong and what is wrong stays wrong. Okay, so when a child is crying for the cell phone and you are there, maybe in a mall, maybe there are guests that are visiting. Children know how to emotionally blackmail their parents. They are far, far smarter than you think. They are smarter than the smartphone itself. The moment they know there are, visitors, they'll start demanding the cell phone and they'll start crying. अब माँ बाप ये करते हैं कि कहाँ, guest के सामने तमाशा हो जाए. Okay, okay, better take this, and you. No, don't do that. Let the child cry. All right. That is a sort of an emotional vaccination that I'm talking about. Don't pamper kids unnecessarily. Tell them what is wrong. All right, even if it calls for a mild punishment, stand in the corner, face the wall. Unless and until you don't do this thing, I'm not allowing you in. What you've done is wrong, and then you're not allowed to do something, like you're not allowed to watch TV for the entire day today. All right, you're not talking with me, I'm not talking with you. This is a situation that you put your kids into and allow them to grow. This is entirely controlled. Okay, and this is something that the kids understand how to deal with situations. That is the entire concept of an emotional vaccine. And now I will simply come to the end, of the presentation with a bunch of do's and don'ts. I think in the course of the discussion we might have already been through that, but this is more like, and this list is so huge, it is so big. I could actually have a lecture on do's and don'ts. But then exercise, friends, and hobbies. These are three dimensions. By exercise, I mean everything that goes in with your health, your food, your intake. When you talk about exercise, I'm basically talking about the health. So when you exercise, you eat good food, good healthy food, nutritious food, and you exercise a lot, and you take good care of your health. All right. A healthy mind in a healthy body. You all have heard of that. The mind body complex, as they call it. Okay. So you have to keep yourself physically fit, healthy, and then friends. By friends, it could be your classmates. Don't keep on competing with your friends all the time. That is one of the most stupid things to do in life. Friends, are friends. If you allow me, वो क्या एक जिंगल था, हर एक दोस्त कमी ना होता है, हर एक फ्रेंड कमी ना होता है. That the type of friend that you have in life, have a variety of friends. All right, it always helps you, become more resilient. You are able to interact with a broad number of people, the most intellectual to the backbenchers in the class, that is. So interacting with friends, dealing with situation, actually helps you become more resilient and have some hobbies. Pursue some good hobbies in life. These are vents, to all the emotional turmoil, if at all that were to happen. And don't get into drugs, alcohol, tobacco, cigarette, tobacco, whatever you call it. No, that is a no for life, and it stays a no. All right, that only weakens you. These artificial, ये शायराना अंदाज में बहुत अच्छा लगता है, but then don't romanticize alcohol and drugs the way I said. Don't romanticize suicide. You would have a lot of shairi on daru waru madhushala and all that. It's wonderful, excellent, but keep it there. Literature is literature. It should not be, at least the bad thing should not become a part of your life. Avoid a completely self-engrossed or a self-engrossing lifestyle. So it's good that I said being individualistic, but don't lose your connect with society. All right, there are poor people, there are destitute people, there are underprivileged people. Like what we do, if my students remember, last year the entire psychology class went for that what was that Premdan school where underprivileged kids go, and they went there and they took lessons over there. They taught them sports and engaged them in craft and music. See, it has probably nothing to do with psychology per se. All right, but being there in touch with society, some section of society that is underprivileged, sitting with them, spending an hour with them, that in itself is a huge window to the world outside. And please do away with this obsession with competition. This is a word that has been invented simply to market products. This is a very unreal, surreal thing that ever happens. What is competition? When you are not fit enough to achieve something, you call it competition. When you do not have that talent or that aptitude and still you want to aspire for that, forgetting, leaving aside, not acknowledging your real strengths and likes, you call it competition. Now, I'm not good in music, and if I still want to compete with someone for music and do music classes and all that, that's not my strength. If something else is my strength, why don't you go and do that? So there's a competition for medical and engineering admissions. Competition, yes, because everybody is passing 12th standard wants to become an engineer. People never take into account that whether I have an aptitude to become an engineer. All right, I never work on that. I have a fantastic aptitude to do something else in life, but when you go and stand in a queue where you don't you are not predisposed for that, that is when suddenly you find there is a lot of competition. Honestly, I tell you, and I'll end this with it, I have never ever in my life faced anything like competition. Yes, I've been in sports. Yes, I have won matches and I have lost matches. That's a part of being in a sport, but that has always been a learning experience. I've made some fantastic friends on the sporting field, those in my team and my opponents also. That is what sport actually tells you. So sports or NSS, I know Deshpande sir also was the NSS coordinator, and I had an opportunity of seeing all the fantastic work he does. He would agree with me here. These are the things that allow you a better perspective of life. So my humble suggestion, avoid all these competitions as far as you can. So I think I have already consumed more than an hour of your precious time. With this, allow me to wish you a very happy and healthy life ahead on this day of World Suicide Prevention Day. Let us commit ourselves once again that we shall lead a more resilient life. We shall try and help those in problem to help come out of this, the problem that they are into. I'm talking about obviously mental health related problems. Let us make this world a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you so
Manisha
much.
madam,
Yes,
back
sir.
to you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for a fantastic and wonderful session. This presentation is really very useful for all of us, sir. So we
Thank
have some
you.
questions by participants.
Okay.
One question from the participant, like, do you think we have to create more awareness about good parenting to reduce suicide?
That's a wonderful question, but can I tell you, something of both a personal opinion and my very core observation as a student of psychology for the last 25 years. There is no such thing as parenting. There is no such thing as parenting. All right. See, whatever you do as a parent is a parent. So there is no good parenting and there is no bad parenting. All right. These are words that are invented to sell books. You know, good tips or some tips for good parenting and all that. There is a concept of spend quality time with your children. I mean, every moment that you spend with your child is a quality time. So you cannot say, something like, okay, now let me put a few things away and come on, kids. Now I will, play with you. And what I do in the evening is I open a bottle of liquor and I drink and I abuse my wife, and I tell kids, you go into that room. I mean, kids are aware of that. Even that thing that I'm doing that I don't do, honestly. But if, I'm saying if someone does that, that is a part of parenting and is a part of the quality time, as you call it, that you are spending with your child. So every value that you carry, every norm that you follow, all right, every food that you eat and every sort of judgment that you pass is a part of parenting. So trust me on this, there is no such thing as a good or a bad parenting. A parent is a parent and there is no quality time plus minus, aisa kuch nahi hota. So you have to be a good individual basically. All right, let's talk about, I'm a teacher and there are students in front of me. Is there something called a good student, a bad student, a good teacher, a bad teacher? Come on, I'm a teacher, and that's where it ends. If I tell you, kids, you should not smoke and no drugs and something, and next day, you find me sitting in a bar and smoking and consuming, what will you think about me? अरे क्या sir, खुद भी हमको बोलते रहते हैं, आप क्या करते हो? I tell you, kids, study very hard, read books and all that. And what I do is, before your exams, I give you some questions. बेटा इतना पढ़ लो, exam में इतना ही आने वाला है. You know, so what I'm actually doing is a cognitive dissonance of sorts. What I preach and what I think is different, and what I do is entirely different. So trust me on this. Everything that a parent does, a father or a mother, is a part of parenting. So it's not something like parenting is different from your core personality. What I am as a person with all the good and bad things that I carry, the same thing I am as a teacher, the same thing I am as a parent. In teaching, at least, there are certain controls that I have to put in place. Like I said, Bewkoof idiot is to the level to which I can go. But as a parent at home, probably I'm more liberal and I'm more open and I'm more unrestrained. So if I'm an abuser, I cannot hold my kid one day and say, I'll give you candy, then chalo picture chalte hai, and then I, do all the bad things. So from that perspective, what I will honestly suggest is try to evolve into a better person. And everyone, that applies to me also. I'm very much aware there are shortcomings. I'm a part of this society. I'm very much aware I'm no Gandhi or Buddha or a Ram or, something like that. I have my shortcomings, but I have to accept that. And at times I have to tell my children, I have to tell my students, really, I'm sorry about that. That is a shortcoming. I hope, you don't these things in life because, what is bad, I said earlier, stayed bad, stays bad. What is wrong is wrong. So take good care of yourself, your values and thoughts. you will automatically pass it on to your children. Read a few books by Sudha Murthy if you can. You might have heard some of you might have heard her rather in some of her interviews. So you'd really find identify what good parenting, for example, is one of the richest persons in India, and look at the value system that she said she followed in her family. So that is my honest suggestion.
Thank you, sir. So one question is related with they are asking
Mm-hmm.
about book. Is there any book in Hindi language of human psychology?
Arey yaar, I don't know, but you could just Google that. I think that's a very very simple thing to do. I haven't read honestly a book in Hindi, but I'm sure there will be hundreds available. You have an entire belt. Starting from Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, UP. इतना सारा psychology है तो you'll have scores of books in Hindi, general psychology to everything. Just Google that. You'll get 100%.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Another question is about like how I can maintain a mental peace in this pandemic situation. I'm worried about my family, uh, for family members' health due to this. One type of state anxiety is always in my mind.
Yes, yes, I agree to that. I need, I think, problems are getting sort of what more precipitated, more exaggerated because of these, or this particular pandemic situation. That always happens whenever you are in the middle of a crisis. You would find that the problems they actually start, appearing bigger and bigger, which they might not be, but yes, they do. Now, once again, I'll give you a very simple example. Let this pandemic be an eye opener. Okay. Many of people are saying, and you've read about that, the world will never be the same again after the pandemic. What is mental health? What is mental health? It's like physical health. Can you just sit down and start exercising one day? You join a gym, and within a 1 month or period of time or so, you are suddenly very healthy. Does that happen? Yoga classes. There are people who tell me, I did, a 1 month course in meditation or क्या होता है वो कौन सा living है, art of living. I mean, all my respects, to people who are doing this fantastic work. How does a 1 month course help you? 2 महीना yoga classes किया. अब ऐसा classes करके you can never improve on your mental health. It's a continuous process. So you have to eat good food every day. You have to exercise every day, at least twice, thrice a week. And you have to take care of your health, and the same applies to your mental health also. Let this be an eye opener. Or like try and identify all the wrong things that you did, all the wrong values, or the wrong ideas that you held about society, about yourself or the people around you. Try to work on that. Okay, whenever there is a crisis, you know they say never waste a crisis. That's a very fantastic quote, that you might have also read. Never waste a crisis. Now that there is a crisis, try to find out solutions to that. Try to get out of this crisis. Mental health is something that you have to work upon. It is not a given. So it comes back to the same value systems. I'll give you one example. This particular pandemic that we are talking about, there are some people who are what asymptomatic, as they call it, and there are others, who have some very exaggerated symptoms, very high fever and all that. Now, maybe the quantum of exposure was same to both people. One person, you know, got these, symptoms, and the other person remained asymptomatic, quite healthy, as you might call it. Same thing happens with social situations. Everybody is in the same situation. There are some people who find their problems compounding, mental problems, I'm saying, and there are others who are like, okay, I can deal with this. Why is that? So, underlying physical health. Because this person was healthy, the virus did not quite, affect that person. If you have underlying problems and weaker health, it's going to impact you. The same happens with mental health. If you have a weaker mental health, you are bound to face all these problems. And many are things that I, made in this presentation, that was basically broadly speaking about mental health and resilience. So you could start working about these things. Okay. It's
Okay,
not a
sir.
one day event, honestly. Right. Thank you.
So another question is about again regarding with this pandemic situation. In this
Mhm.
pandemic and economic slowdown, how one should stay motivated or keep emotional health good?
yes, the emotional and economic, what you could say, status or health are somewhere, unfortunately, yes, related with each other. This was, like an unseen, unforeseen situation that suddenly popped up in front of us. 6 months back, if we were told that we would be locked in for 6 months, we would have laughed at each other as a ho nahi sakta, but we are into it. And that naturally calls for a lot of, economic pressures, you might call it. Now, how is economics related to your emotional well-being? Number one, yes, you need a salary, you need income, all right. You need food to eat, and you need clothes to wear, and you need safety, and you need money for that. I do not deny the value of money. In the same Blum and Naylor that I was referring to, there is a theory of money. I might, sorry, not recall the authors, but he talks about the theory of money, in which he says money, the presence of money creates happiness, all right. But the absence of money necessarily does not create sorrow. All right, no, I'm sorry. I think I put it the other way around. The absence of money might create sorrow, but the presence of money does not ensure happiness. That was long time back, I read. So what does it mean? When you don't have money, you are, unhappy about it. There's no doubt. But having money is not, ensuring you happiness. So the relationship between economic, whatever status that you are into, and happiness, emotions, as you are talking about, is not necessarily a direct positive correlation. Okay, so yes, you have to lay down. वो कहते हैं ना कि जब what you say एक तूफान आ जाता है, तो जो पेड़ झुकते नहीं है वो उखड़ जाते हैं, and the grass, that readily is, lying down, उस तूफान को बर्दाश्त करके निकल जाती है. That is the situation we all are into. All right. I'll tell you something. The first 3 months into the pandemic, I realized I did not spend a single money on what we call as lifestyle. Only food, and that's it. Hardly anything else, सिर्फ सब्जी और जो किराना होता है वो छोड़ दिया. Not a single cloth, not a single item. Like, I mean, I either we don't buy fast food and all that, but hotel food and all that, I mean, hotel to khair, I admit I do go and I buy food. Not a single penny being spent on that. Not a single penny really spent on these so-called vacations and ye or wo. So that makes you realize, yeah, why are we spending money and what for? How much money do you really need to survive? And you'll find that, वो रोटी कपड़ा and मकान, and that is the only thing that you realize. ये सारा जो economic pressures हमने अपने ऊपर ले लिया है, that is our own creation. You know, for the last 20 odd years I've been into service, मेरे सर के ऊपर कभी कोई EMI रहा ही नहीं. You know, you might call me a failure in life, but no EMIs. ना घर का EMI, ना गाड़ी का EMI, ना कोई इसका EMI, ना उसका EMI. मुझे वो झंझट ही नहीं चाहिए. तो एक तारीख आ गई, पगार नहीं आया, ईएमआई का क्या होगा? आई मीन आई एम लिविंग माय लाइफ क्वाइट हैप्पीली. फॉर यू, इट माइट बी, आई डोंट नो, अ सक्सेस और अ फेल्यूर, बट फॉर मी आई एम एक्सट्रीमली हैप्पी एंड कंटेंट विद दैट. तो ये जो सारा इकोनॉमिक हम अपने ऊपर ले लेते हैं बोझा, इट्स सो अननेसेसरी एट टाइम्स. इट्स एब्सोल्युटली, a waste of time, money and life. So this at least should give you an insight into your own spending habits and the things that you really need to spend upon. But yes, there are hardships. I do acknowledge that there are hardships, and let's hope, a few months down the road, and that is where, support systems and all, everything comes into place. So I think I could go on and on about this. There's a paper that I wrote that might be published, this month, that was about these, economic, situation or hardship that you could call in mental health. It precisely takes on this. See, I'll just, end this with one sentence or just one point. When people invest in the stock market, they're expecting a huge return and they make huge money out of that. But at some time or the other, the market tanks. होता है ना, मार्केट क्रैश हो गया एंड पीपल लूज देयर शर्ट. पूरा लाखों करोड़ों का नुकसान हो गया एंड पीपल लूज एवरी पेनी. उसको हम कहते हैं लूजिंग योर शर्ट इन द मार्केट. ये जैसी सिचुएशन होती है दोस्तों, कहीं ना कहीं लाइफ में यही होता है. जो लोग पैसा पैसा पैसे के पीछे भागते हैं, वो बहुत ह्यूज रिस्क लेते हैं. दे वो ह्यूज रिस्क एपेटाइट. नाउ दे वांट अ जॉब दैट गिव्स देम ह्यूज मनी. वो वर्क कल्चर नहीं देखते कंपनी का, वो देखते हैं ज्यादा always find that these people are, more entire of their focus is into looking for just other well-being. When that happens and you end up situation जब ऐसा ना हो, you are enjoying your life और तरक्की 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 देख रहे हो जैसे pandemic आ गया, those companies that don't care about their employees, they sack them. So, you have taken these risks because you have that personality and that makeup. You always wanted more money. You wanted a bigger house and a bigger car, and you followed that. So, अब क्यों रो रहे हो? तुमने वो रिस्क लेके पैसे के पीछे भागे. So that's happening to you. So most of the people, the survey that I carried out, they have themselves taken these risks. But yes, problems galore. I think my screen just went black. So problems galore. Let's hope we come out of this pandemic, very soon, and basic economic activity resumes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. So next question, we have lots of question actually. We'll take last two questions now.
Okay,
One is
okay.
about what is your expert recommendation for corporeal punishments to children? Isn't it physical abuse?
Yes, I think I mentioned that, and I would love to take this question. No, I never suggest corporal punishment at all. Punishment and corporal punishment are different things, and in my lecture also let there be no confusion at all. I gave you a definition of punishment. What is that? Any object stimulus, situation that follows a response, thereby decreasing the probability of the response occurring again. You don't need to beat your kids. You don't need to do that. All right, you have to understand the concept of punishment. So making the child stand in front of the class, I mean, you don't even touch the child, but you haven't done that. All those who have not made their homework or completed their homework, stand here, hold your ears. इसमें क्या corporal punishment आ गया? But there are parents who complain about that. See, what happens is, ये जो कंसेप्ट हम लेकर आए हैं कि पनिशमेंट मींस अब्यूज. नो, पनिशमेंट एंड अब्यूज आर एंटायरली डिफरेंट थिंग्स. कॉर्पोरल पनिशमेंट मत करो, हाथ मत लगाओ बच्चों को, डोंट डू दैट. बट आस्किंग अ चाइल्ड, एंड दिस जस्ट एग्जांपल दैट मेरे मुंह से निकल गया. आस्किंग द चाइल्ड, स्कूल के बच्चे को क्लास के सामने खड़े रहो और कान पकड़ के खड़े हो जाओ. क्या होता है, बच्चों को तुम जब इन सिचुएशंस को एक्सपोज नहीं करते, कल चल के बिकॉज व्हेन द चाइल्ड इज स्टैंडिंग इन फ्रंट ऑफ द क्लास, वो सामने बैठे हुए उसके बच्चे हंस रहे हैं उसको, दे आर मेकिंग फन ऑफ हिम, और दैट चाइल्ड हैज टू अंडरगो दैट सो कॉल्ड इग्नोनिमिटी, दैट सो कॉल्ड जो भी उसको तुम इमोशनल टर्मोइल वरमाइल पता नहीं दुनिया के बड़े बड़े नाम देते हो. अरे लेकिन ये वो छोटा सा प्लेसिबो है, रादर व्हाट वाज आई सेइंग, वैक्सीन है जो तुम बच्चों को इंड्यूस कर रहे हो. कल जब वो एक्चुअल सिचुएशन में आ जाता है जहां की पब्लिकली उसका बॉस उसको रिप्रिमांड करता है, what happens is these people, they go into a nervous breakdown क्योंकि उन्होंने कभी देखा ही नहीं है कि मुझे किसी ने चार लोगों के सामने कुछ कहा है. Now does that mean I'm supporting some abuse in the office? Does that mean that I'm supporting something like bosses should be rude to their employees? See, I don't control society. All right, so it's not a question of what I support and what I oppose. The question is, can you make your kids more resilient? All right, are you imbibing better values that you should complete your homework in time, number one, and number two, that you should be able to face a situation where kids are laughing at you or making a mockery of you. हर किसी का number बार बार आता रहेगा, and then you say like it's okay यार, nothing much to worry about. So ये चीज है. Corporal punishment को no, I don't subscribe that at all. I don't support that.
Thank you, sir. And the last question, which is what are your views on supernatural experiences during meditation, they work
Um,
or they are an outcome of self-hypnosis?
I think I have never reached that stage, honestly. I have never reached a stage where, I could have some supernatural experience or something. No, sorry. So, personal experience, sorry, I cannot comment upon that. I've never had this experience. But there are people who report that, people who, report a feeling of exhilaration at that point of time, which is quite possible. Don't call it supernatural. That could always be a natural thing, because what is your brain and what is meditation? What is it leading to? You're aware of brainwave, delta, theta, alpha, beta. You're aware of neurotransmitters. There are a lot of chemicals in the brain. basically what happens when you're doing that is you're controlling that, and it is these new chemical activities that actually lead to our conscious perception of the world, the feeling of consciousness that you feel this, exhilaration or something. So I think that's quite possibly philosophical in nature, and I haven't personally been through that. But if someone has, I'm still call it a natural phenomena and not a supernatural phenomena. It's just actualization. Maslow mentioned something similar, that those people who reach the peak of self-actualization, they have, certain episodes where they feel, entirely content about their life. So something similar to that, yes, it's there in mainstream psychology, but I will call it supernatural phenomena. Okay, so I think it's been 1.5 hours, and maybe I
Yes,
should
sir.
not be bothering listeners, beyond a certain limit. So thank you. Thank you so much for
Uh,
this
so you're not audible.
wonderful, what do you say, occasion. Not occasion or serious for all, but it gave me an opportunity to interact with all of you and all the wonderful participants. Thank you so much for your patience listening. And I thank the organizers once again for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. So it is very essential uh, to express my gratitude. So it is about vote of thanks. So first of all, I would like to say thanks to our respected director, Professor Dr. Satish Deshpande sir, for motivating and giving us this opportunity to organize this webinar. I'm very much thankful to our resource person, Dr. Vilas Padhe sir, for this wonderful and fantastic session. So, in this session, very precisely, you gave us a deep insight about a good mental health. Session was really very interactive, and it's really very helpful for all of us. So, on behalf of all the participants and from GIPSA, I'm very much thankful to you. Thank you so much, sir. And now I'm going to express my thanks to all my teaching and non-teaching staff for their support, especially for the technical help. So thank you so much. And last but not the least, I am very much thankful to all the participants for your overwhelming response and interactive session. For your question, you participants were very active throughout the session. So stay fit, stay healthy. Thank you. Thank you so much. One note for the participant is kindly fill the feedback form and submit itself by today. And you will get e-certificate within 10 days. So thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you.